Build Your Platform Podcast, episode number 8. On this episode of Build Your Platform, we will be hearing from one of my favorite podcasters, Adam Clark. He is the host of The Gently Mad, and he basically recorded a response to a podcast episode that I did called Finding Your Voice, all the way back in episode number 6. Hear what he has to say about all of that, why it's hard for him and the rest of us, in this episode of Build Your Platform. Hey there, how's it going? And welcome to another episode of Build Your Platform. Thank you so much, as always, for listening in. I sincerely appreciate it. In case you haven't listened in before, this is a podcast for early stage entrepreneurs and small business owners who are just starting to build their audience, and they're not looking for conventional marketing advice. Well, you might be looking for conventional marketing advice, but you're not really going to find it here. You're going to find the hard stuff, but it's the hard stuff that actually works. It takes hard work, and so that's just kind of how it is. Now, this is a very special episode for 2 reasons. The first reason is because I'm using a brand new recording rig. This is the Boss Jock app, and I love it because it resembles the old mixing boards that I used to use back when I was a college radio jock at WHIP 91.3 FM, Temple's student-run radio station. Okay, I just had a flashback there, and so I just kind of took it there and did my old introduction song and dance and all that other good stuff. So on one hand, this is a mixing board like I'm used to using, and so it's really cool. And on the other hand, I'm like really uncomfortable and really self-conscious right now because I haven't gotten it to sound exactly the way I want it to. I'm still not completely thrilled with the overall sound quality, and maybe I just want it to sound perfect and whatever other bullshit is going through my head right now. But at any rate, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there and publish it. And if it actually does sound really bad, then that's okay, because the next time around it'll sound a little bit better, and then the time after that it'll sound even better, and then eventually I'm going to make this thing sound damn good. But for now, I'm going to eat my own dog food, take my own advice, and basically put this out there before I really feel ready. So that's the first reason why this is a very special episode, and the second reason is because one of my favorite podcasters basically just gave me some content for free, didn't even charge me for it. I sincerely appreciate it. So this is Adam Clark. He is the host of the Gently Mad podcast, and he basically inspired me to start this podcast because he speaks from the heart, from the soul, from the gut. This is all him. He also talks about the struggle and the self-doubt and all the pain that comes with that. And so he's been enjoying my podcast, and apparently the episode that I did all the way back in episode number 6, 2 whole weeks ago, or 1 whole week ago at this rate, whenever it was, Finding Your Voice and Why It's So Hard, really resonated with him. And so he recorded a response and sent it to me, and now I am more than happy to play that for you. He talks about why it's hard for him to find his voice, why it's hard for others to find their voice, plus he uses really fancy words like dichotomy. That's the good stuff. I only have people on this podcast who use fancy words, so I really appreciate that, Adam. Thanks so much. And without further ado, here is his response to my episode of Finding Your Voice.
Hey man, I just wanted to let you know that I am enjoying the podcast a lot, and I was thinking about your latest episode on Finding Your Voice and a conversation I had recently. I can't remember who it was with, but it may have been on one of the episodes of TGM, I'm not sure, but on the whole topic of finding your voice, what's difficult is that we tend to, there's this whole dichotomy between what's proven but not authentic, and what's authentic but not proven. And so I did the same thing. Before I launched The Gently Mad, there was another show I had planned to launch, and it was basically an Entrepreneur on Fire clone, because that method was proven. You know, I felt like I could do that. I knew how to make that kind of show, and I could do it and monetize it very quickly and make a lot of money. And I started recording. I had the whole plan together. I had recorded probably 10 episodes, And it was going to be the same thing. It was going to be a daily show, 30 minutes, entrepreneurial inspiration. It was basically going to be Entrepreneur on Fire, but with me as the host. And I thought that would bring enough uniqueness to it. And actually, that's probably a fine plan. I probably could have done that show and it would have been fine. Sure, there's some Me Too-ness to it, but just because a 7-day-a-week entrepreneurial show has been done before doesn't mean another one can't exist. But for me, I woke up one morning, or either I was up late one night, and it hit me that it wasn't me. That was not me. Trying to be inspirational guy was not me, because I'm not by nature inspirational guy. I am by nature the spill my guts everywhere and just bleed all over everyone guy. And whenever I try to be inspirational guy, it just doesn't work as well. I mean, I've had friends tell me it just doesn't sound like you. It sounds fake, And I realized that it'd be better to make a show that was me, even if it did tend to focus more on the struggle and failure and the self-doubt and all that stuff. But I was really worried. Again, that gets back to that dichotomy. That would be authentic. That would be me, but that's unproven. That's untested. I had no idea if that would work. But ultimately, I decided to do it because I was so frustrated with having spent so many years of my life trying to make something I thought people would like. That was the whole motivation. Why am I making this? I'm making this because I think it will be successful, because I think people will like it, because I think I will be able to make money from this. But it wasn't really me. And I realize that there are qualifications to this. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with doing something because you have a strong feeling that it's going to connect and it's going to be successful. But I think the problem is when we do things where that is the only thing it has going for it. We think it's going to be successful, but we're not really being ourselves either. That's also where we burn out, because when we do things like that, if it's not successful, or when we do hit the dip, then we quit, because our heart's not really in it. It's not really who we are. We're not really passionate about it. We were only doing it for success, and if success doesn't come, then we quit. So I decided to do the thing that was more authentic but unproven, and it worked. At least it worked initially, and it drew an audience. And was there a dip? Absolutely. For the whole last month, I've been in a serious dip, and it's a struggle every day to think, why am I doing this? Does it really matter? Is it helping anyone? Is it helping me anymore? And I found myself get really attached to the numbers. I didn't expect anyone to listen, but then when they did show up and listen, suddenly they mattered then. Suddenly it's so weird how I can honestly say I started something not caring if one person listened. But then when all these people showed up to listen, suddenly I really cared about keeping those listeners and not losing them. And I started thinking about, well, what do I do now? How do I keep these listeners around? When the answer is pretty simple. The reason they came was because I decided to not give a shit and just be who I am, regardless of what people thought. The problem is now, when I continue being who I am, I have a little bit of a platform, so I get some flack for it. There are some people out there who hear it and don't like who I am, and they tell me about that. And that's very discouraging. But I just wanted to let you know, your episode today about finding your voice, our comments on Twitter back and forth, and the episode I released today of the Gently Mad, the conversation with my wife, has really helped me to just realize that you're right. It doesn't matter. Especially when we're talking about the fact that the people who don't like what I'm doing are literally less than 2%. I could show the emails and the stats. The people who don't like what I'm doing are less than 2%. It'd be different if 98% of the people hated what I was doing and 2% liked it. That might be a sign that maybe I need to change something, or maybe this thing isn't really the thing that I'm gonna, make into a big deal. But the fact that it's such a small percentage, shows me that I don't know why I'm so concerned about the 2% over the 98%, but I do. I get all wrapped up in those 2% who vocally express their distaste for what I do. But anyway, I just wanted to encourage you as well in your own podcasting efforts. I really like your show, and I think it's great. I think what you're doing is good, and I hope it's successful for you, and I appreciate all the encouragement. So that's it, man. Keep doing what you're doing. All right, bye.
Thank you so much, Adam Clark. I really appreciate the fact that you actually took the time to make that recording for me, and of course, I appreciate the fact that you gave me permission to basically play it on an episode of my podcast. And really, Adam said everything that really needs to be said, but I still want to add in just one or two things here, just to kind of complete the circle. The first thing is that when we're talking about things that are already proven but may not be as authentic, like if you're trying to use a proven method like the John Lee Dumas Entrepreneur on Fire method, he proved that you can do a 7-day-a-week podcast, half-an-hour episodes interviewing successful entrepreneurs. On the surface, yes, that is a proven method. The only thing that is not proven is whether you can do that too. And by you, I mean any individual. I mean me, I mean Adam Clark, I mean you, the listener, just about anybody. It's really not yet proven that you can do it because there are so many different variables at play, and the variables are things that we can't really put our finger on, but the variables have everything to do with your personality, like how you tend to do things. Is your personality your way of doing things? I'm being redundant here, but is your way of doing things conducive to doing a 7-day-a-week, half-an-hour podcast? And also the fact that John Lee Dumas was able to hire Jamie Tardy as his mentor, and she immediately took him to Blog World, now known as New Media Expo, and he was able to get FaceTime with all these people and celebrities and entrepreneurs, and he managed to convince them all to come on board. And so he had a lot of good luck involved in that. He had serendipity. I call luck opportunity meeting preparation. And so that certainly played a factor. And he also had really good systems in place to make everything work as far as his batch processing of recording all of his interviews on a Monday. And so he has basically content for weeks and weeks out. So there are all those little things, all those little variables that take things into account. So the basic overall structure of doing content of some sort, of doing online marketing of some sort, sure, the basic overall structures are proven methods, but it is never proven that you can do it until you actually prove that you can do it. So that's the one thing. And the other thing that I just wanted to pick up on was if 98% of people hated something you did and only 2% liked it, then you would have to rethink it. And the good news is that if 98% of people hated what you did, you would never know it. Because I feel like, at least in my own experience and in the experiences of others that I've heard about, there is always that vocal minority. So if people are going to tell you how much you suck and that you should just fuck off and eat shit and all that other good stuff, it's only going to be that 2%. If 98% of people hate what you do, you will probably never hear from them. All you're going to hear is crickets, and that's it. It's the same thing with whenever my wife and I, my wife Erin, we like to watch, well, we haven't done it as much lately, but whenever we watched episodes of Kitchen Nightmares or Restaurant Impossible, or really any one of those shows where you have a really shitty establishment of some sort and they bring in a consultant to try to turn things around, in almost every episode of Kitchen Nightmares and Restaurant Impossible, the restaurant owner says, "Oh, I never heard any negative feedback. Nobody has ever told me that the food is bad. Nobody has ever specifically mentioned to me or any of my waitstaff that everything absolutely sucked." And that's true. Nobody ever did mention it to them. However, they voted with their feet. And so They ate there once, had a bad experience, and then they never came back. And that's why all the restaurants' sales were tanking, and that's why they had to call in Gordon Ramsay and Chef Robert Irvine to try and save their businesses. But that's the whole thing. If 98% of people hated what you do, you probably wouldn't have the additional discouragement of having 98% of those people emailing you or calling you or tweeting you and saying how much you really suck. You would just hear crickets. And crickets could mean a number of different things, but crickets definitely means that you should go back to the drawing board and start over again, or keep trying, or keep adjusting, or keep changing course, whatever the case may be. But the 2% of people, or less than 2% in this case, will always remain the less than 2%. And so as long as there are people who are voting with their feet or voting with their wallets, and they're paying you and they're listening and they're giving you positive feedback, those are the only people that you should really be listening to. And that includes people who give you constructive criticism, like, hey, I love your show, but maybe you ought to try this, that, and the other. As long as the criticism is actually coming from a good place, then that's really what matters. If people are just saying, you fucking suck, I don't like you, then who cares? They can just kick rocks, move on, and all that other good stuff. You don't need them. You don't need that kind of stress in your life. You just need the people who are here to support you and who will tell you when you're doing good and who will tell you when you're doing not so good, but always from a good, positive place in their heart. And wow, okay, I think rant over. I didn't expect to add all that additional commentary to the end of Adam's segment, but as I was listening to it, of course, my brain started running. And well, when my brain starts running and I have a microphone in front of my mouth and I have a button that I can use to turn the microphone on, that's just kind of what happens sometimes. So that about does it for this episode of the Build Your Platform podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to look at the show notes pages, see any links, resources, and otherwise, go to andystitt.com/BYP. That's BYP for Build Your Platform. Feel free to also leave me a rating and or review in iTunes. Go to andystitt.com/iTunes. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out there and ship, connect, and repeat. Thanks so much. I'll see you out there.